Right, we'll start recording. Sound stop.
I coughed.
You know,
Jeez, I'm not allowed to cough.
no, sometimes when you talk to me, I'll get like a little throbbing at the back of my head.
Okay, I didn't know where you were going to say that throbbing was.
And I'll think that I'm about to have an aneurysm. But then you stop talking and it goes away, and so lovingly I've called it my little amberism.
Oh, that's the cutest thing you've ever said.
You're welcome.
That's actually quite sweet.
Hello, and welcome to Rory and Amber take a show up to Edinburgh Fringe.
Episode 2, The Auditions.
Yeah, auditions. It's good. We have just done some auditions. We have auditioned a bunch of people for our show, so now is a good time to talk about this kind of thing, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah? It's good. Oh, good. I'm glad you agree with me. Good. So we will be going over three things, really. What is an audition, just in case somehow somebody is unaware. Fairly self-explanatory.
Don't be rude.
All right, sorry. What is it like doing an audition, and then as well what it is like auditioning someone. We will go over all of that, and we'll talk about our experiences a bit and all that kind of thing, and it'll be good.
It'll be groovy.
Yeah, all right, good. Well, let's just get into it then. So, what is an audition? How would you describe it?
Well, if you want to be in a show or a production or a movie or whatever, you tend to do an audition just so that the people producing or directing get an idea of what your skills are, can also see what you actually look like and sound like, and then match you up with a character that works with you.
Yeah, unless you want a one-man show at all, which I think we could do, to be fair.
Not with you.
Not with me.
Yeah, because you've got zero talent.
Oh. I thought we were going to keep it calm for this week.
We had to get the burns in quick, sorry.
That's fine. So yeah, for an actor it's very much kind of a showcase of their skills, and for a director it's very much kind of seeing lots of different people and just what kind of person they're looking for to fit a certain role. So let's start off with, what is it like actually doing an audition from the actor's point of view? Because we just did it for, well, the most recent Panto that Pantosoc is putting on, which I think the name has been finalised as Brave New Panto.
A Brave New Panto.
A Brave New Panto. So it's an original piece that's been written about, it was set in the future. I think
it's a sci-fi panto, basically.
Yeah, it's based off a lot of tropes. So I think it takes them, we haven't seen the script yet, but I think it takes the mickey out of a lot of kind of sci-fi tropes from the 70s
so
and that
has,
kind of thing.
Like bits, sort of like Doctor Who style bits, Red Dwarf, Rick and Morty is in there.
Is it?
Yeah, because Sophie's playing Rick, isn't she?
Oh yeah, she's playing Rick Sanchez, I suppose it is.
Oh, did we say Star Wars?
Star
Princess
Wars.
Leia is the dame and the baddie.
Yeah. So we've just done auditions for that. So why don't you take us through what you did for your audition? Well, actually, talk us through what Pantosoc asked for an audition, and then tell us what you did.
Right. So with Pantosoc, the first thing is that when you're doing auditions, you're going to get a part, because how we do it in Bristol is there's a limited amount of audition slots, and if you audition, you get in, because it's just quite inclusive like that. So that's kind of makes it less nervous, because you know you're going to be in the show. You can then say if you'd prefer to have a small, medium or large part. They tend to not necessarily listen to if you want a large part. It's more important for if someone could have a large role but is really busy and can't do it, then you don't want to cast them as that.
Yeah.
So for this one, you had to read 2 extracts, and they would read in for the other characters, and then you had to sing a bit of a song, and also they then asked what accents you could do, because they had a few characters. I don't know what scene this will be in, but they needed like Canadian, German, French and like Italian or something, I think.
Yeah.
So they had us do a few accents as well.
Okay, so I think just that's basically it. Do you want to talk us through what it was like? So you read the extracts beforehand.
Yeah.
And then what happened from there?
My god. Like I hadn't done an audition since May of last year, because when we did summer panto, so I was like sweating buckets, which was ridiculous, and I went in and I was like, dudes, I do not know why I'm so nervous, sorry. So the extracts I picked were a cat.
The cat. If anybody has seen Red Dwarf, is based off the cat from Red Dwarf.
So it was just very like mincing about that sort of thing, so I did that. And then I also read for Riff Raff, who obviously that's a character in Rocky Horror, but this character is based off of Malcolm Tucker from The Thick of It.
It's a good fit for you, especially when we talk about directing style in a future podcast. I'm sure everybody would agree.
So I had to try and do a Scottish accent, and oh boy, it was rough. It was rough, but I tried, and they laughed, so that went well.
That's
and
good.
then the song I chose was I can't remember what it's called, but it's Plankton's Rap from SpongeBob the Musical, and I actually did the fast bit really well, so I'm bloody chuffed.
Yeah. And so, okay, good. And what, they liked it? Did they give you any feedback when you were there, or?
No, when I was there, they then just asked for the accents thing, and then was like, "We'll get in contact." And then I got a call back for a part I didn't read for, and then I didn't get that part. I got the one that I originally read for, so I got Riff Raff, which is the angry Scottish man.
The angry Scottish man.
And which is very me. I'm angry and English woman. So I've got one of the three things.
And you're now learning how to do a Scottish accent through YouTube.
I found like a tutorial for Glaswegian accents. So I'm going to be practicing that, I think, during the day tomorrow, because it's the read-through, and I just know it's going to be rough.
Yeah.
Oh, and I get to sing, my character does We Are Number One from Lazy Town.
Yeah.
So, and that song is a meme anthem. I love Stephen Carl Stephenson so much.
It is good.
So I hope to do him proud.
Definitely one of the genre-defining memes of the decade.
Yes, and it's just a bop. It's a bop. Like, regardless of the memes, it's bop.
It's good.
What was your audition like then, Rory?
I mean, it was broadly the same. I was a bit taken aback because we get these little sheets beforehand to tick whether or not we want a small, medium, or large part.
About.
And then, kind of as I read down it, there was one box which I hadn't seen before, and it was just like, "How comfortable are you with nudity or partial nudity?" And it was like, really?
Yeah, it was partial nudity. They put in brackets like underwear, and I ticked yes. Then I left the audition and was like, "Oh my god, what have I done?" So I'm so glad. I don't think Malcolm Tucker's getting nude.
See, I ticked yes and was like, very yes, so okay with this. I'm so ready.
Just because we've done Naked Calendar doesn't mean I ever want to do it again.
Oh, that was good fun though. But yes, apart from that, my audition experience was broadly the same. Again, looked at the extracts before. I picked, what was it, Apollo and then Crichton.
Yeah, he's the robot from Red Dwarf.
The robot from Red Dwarf, and Apollo is kind of a mix between Arnold Rimmer from Red Dwarf as well as
the 10th Doctor, so
the
David
10th Doctor.
Tennant.
Which, yeah, and that was all good. When it did them, I sang. Oh God, what did I sing?
You sung. Oh my god! Lady Gypsy from
Lady
David
Gypsy,
Brent on the Road.
Which is great. Which is written by David Brent, aka Ricky Gervais.
It's an amazing song.
Being his character from The Office, it was great because if anybody hasn't heard it, it starts off like a normal folk song, and then devolves into something weird. And so it was quite funny watching the reactions in the room be like, why is he doing this folk song to? Oh my god.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like every time. It was just hearing about the price of the heather that always got me. Just listen to the song.
Go look it up on YouTube. It's good.
It's good.
And then I went and did the accents as well.
Oh God, Rory cannot do accents. Can you give us Canadian?
No, we're not.
No,
we're not.
No, look, okay.
It's like, what's that all about?
Oh my God.
Let's go surfing on the Great Lake.
I made a terrible mistake. Okay, we're gonna stop there.
Yeah, so accent's really my forte, and I ended up doing like kind of they asked for a German one, and so I did Bruno, Sacha Baron Cohen's character.
That's not.
It was Austrian. It was close enough. But yes, so I think we both had the auditions were fun. I think with Pantosoc especially, they are a good bit of fun. Everybody's there to have a good time. There's not a lot of pressure if you mess up, because people mess up in Panto. As long as you can kind of make a joke out of it and interact quite well with the panel, then it can put you in quite a good light. I think for perhaps more serious productions, well, I know it's not quite like that. I know when we've both done MTV auditions before.
God, there's so Panto only had 6-7 people on the panel, I want to say.
Yeah.
But then MTV, it's like a wall of like 16 people all listening.
Yeah, like choreographers and vocal directors and
like
all of
the
that
committee.
Kind of,
it's just, God, it was a lot.
So I think if you've never done an audition before, just be prepared to do it in front of maybe a mini audience. But again, nothing wrong with that because you're going to have to do it in front of a proper audience
anyway.
One day. So in some ways, it's good practice. But I think if you're going into an audition, try and have fun with it, and if something goes wrong, make the best out of it. Show that you're adaptable. I think that's the main takeaway. And so what have we covered? It's The extracts kind of show off the acting portion of your talents. The singing shows off the singing portion of your talents.
Luckily for you, they don't do a dance audition.
They don't do a dance audition. Very luckily for me. And then also the accents and stuff like that, or the improv kind of thing, because that's quite important with Panto. Don't know if you wouldn't get that in like a standard audition per se. That would just depend on the type of show that it is, I reckon. So yeah, that's what it's like doing an audition. Did you enjoy it, the process as a whole?
What, of doing the audition?
Yeah, with the callbacks and everything.
I kind of do. I mean, personally, we'll be talking about this later, but like I've never ran callbacks. I just haven't felt the need to do it. It was alright, just I'm like very much a perfectionist, so I like left the audition and was like, that is the worst thing I've ever done in my entire life. I want to just crawl up into a ball and never talk to anyone again. Yeah. And then I got a callback and it was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Also, FYI, a callback is when you do the first round of auditions and then the people running the auditions want to see you read another part or read the same part again but in a different...
It's normally for principal roles, so like, for example, they didn't do it for the dame actually, but like often you'll get it for like the dame or the main woman, the main man, people who have to sing often as well, because then they can, in the callback, they'll make you do a bit of a song that your character would be doing, rather than a song that might just suit your voice. So yeah, it's basically an audition, but you have more preparation because you also get the extracts in advance.
Yeah. I think that's everything that needs to be covered from an actor's point of view. Especially for Panto. It's not so bad. It was fun, and I quite enjoyed the callback, and it was good. And I think the most important thing is just not to stress about auditions.
Yeah, it's like, it's easy to kind of be like, oh, I could have done this better, I could have done that better, and it's like, it would have gone fine, like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just try and enjoy the experience, especially because, like, with Panto, like, I knew everyone on the panel, so I was just trying to have a good time.
Yeah.
Because they're all lovely.
And it was good. Okay, so that's what it's like being an actor. What's it like on the other side of the desk?
Amazing.
Oh. Do you prefer it? Do you prefer...
Oh, so much.
Really?
I mean, you like attention, so I feel like you like being on the stage.
It's like I literally die if I'm not the centre of attention for more than 5 minutes.
Which is why we inserted ourselves into the Christmas Panto. I really like it because I like seeing people bring like their own ideas to like a character or something. Should we talk about how we auditioned people, like the process? Yeah, let's
talk about that.
Yeah, what do kind of slightly differently.
I think talk about the general things that you look for, and then we'll talk about the differences between us.
I already know the characters. I mean, you know the characters pretty well because you were in Shrek, but obviously because I directed it back in Easter last year, I know the characters very well, so I sort of had an idea of what I was looking for. So there's sort of like certain characteristics that you might look for. There's also things like how expressive are they? So, for example, Donkey is a very expressive character. So you want someone who has a lot of like emotions come across in their face, not someone who might go for a more sort of realistic kind of acting. You need something really over the top. And then there's stuff like Fiona and Farquaad will be singing, I think, Love is an Open Door. Yeah. Either that or a Bruno Mars song. So it's kind of making sure the people who play them can sing or like could have a fun rendition of those kinds of songs. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Sometimes there's some physical stuff that you might look for. So like, I don't know, like with a dame, you sometimes want someone quite tall because that's normally just a part of the dame. They're quite like, not quite foreboding, but like they're quite a big figure.
They're a presence.
Yeah, and you want them to have a really big stage presence. So like, it might not necessarily work with someone who's very like small and slight. It depends if they can like bring a lot to themselves. So you kind of have there is some characteristics you look for, but like, to be honest, for Shrek, not too much.
Well, I think it does just... In that case, it depends on the character, doesn't it? Because for Gaston, I think you've got to have somebody who's acting quite, like, big and boisterous and stuff like that, or you've got to have somebody the other way who very much isn't the traditional Gaston character, and then you kind of play on that and maybe turn it into some kind of joke. So you've got to, like, be aware of what you're doing when you're casting someone and how the script is written, I think. Yeah? So what was it like, then, setting up the audition? So we had 3 of us behind the desk, you, me, and
the head producer,
Louisa. And we invited people in one at a time, and they had to read one of the extracts.
Well, one or two
of the extracts. They had to perform a song, and then we didn't ask for any improv or anything like that, did we? No. So yeah, what is it then? What are like the specific criteria you looked for, and then we'll talk about how I do it slightly differently.
So I write out a list of every character who's in the panto. Then as people come in, I have a notebook and I'll be writing down characteristics. So for example, we have some international students.
Yep.
So if someone has like an American accent, I'll write that down because that could be handy for Donkey, for example, or it could be handy for other characters. Or Shrek, for example, needs a Scottish accent, so if someone can do that, it's like noting that down.
Yeah.
What kind of people look like, maybe like who they can be paired well with. For example, we have two characters, the Muffin Man and the Muffin Man's wife, so you want a couple who, you know, go well together and you can kind of picture on stage like gelling well together.
Yeah.
So as I'll go, I'll write down the actors' names next to any characters I think they could do. So you could end up with one person being written down for Fiona, some random princess, and then Lord Farquaad or something like that. And then, I'll write down how they did, what their singing was like in my notebook. And then it's normally sort of a process of elimination. One of the interesting things of Fringe, though, was that we're there for 2 weeks. Some people are doing both weeks, some people are doing 1 week and then the other. I think only 2 people are playing the same character both weeks.
Yeah.
Because Shrek played by the same person and someone else. Peter, because
we very much had a character for Peter.
Yeah, James can be so good as Peter.
So yeah, that's basically your process, and I think mine is broadly similar. It's just similar. It's really
this
good.
Is why you're not on stage. You can't talk.
It's really good actually when you're doing a podcast and you can speak really well. That's really good. But yeah, my process, as opposed to yours, I will, when they come in, I will just kind of almost knock them a mark out of 10. But in my mind, I'll be writing down kind of if they're really good at, if they've got really expressive face, how good their singing is, how well they can change the pitch of their voice and stuff like that, and kind of how well they're reading into the character. Just little things that really stand out about them. And then I'll kind of, as opposed to you who'll kind of do it think about the characters as they're kind of doing their reading out their extracts and stuff like that. I'll note down all the features I like and then do it afterwards once they've gone. Yeah. Which I think for means to the end, sets a different means to the same end.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any difference. I just like doing it kind of like while they're in there, because it might be that they say something and it pops into my head like, oh, that like the way they've said that or the way they have these characteristics would really suit this character. Yeah. So, for example, one of the people who'll be playing Donkey in one of the weeks, I think he did one extract for the Fairy Godmother and that was it, I want to say. He might have done 2.
I can't remember.
Either way, he read out an extract for the Fairy Godmother and he sort of brought this kind of level of sass to the voice that I wasn't sure if it was really what I wanted for Fairy Godmother, but it would be brilliant for Donkey.
Yep.
So it was like I wanted to write that down at the time because as I was listening, it was like Donkey would be so funny doing this.
Yeah. I mean, literally the way I was thinking about it instead was I was writing down, I was being like, oh, that voice. I can make a note what they do of the voice, and then afterwards I think about, oh, that's quite well suited to Donkey. And actually, we're taking a cast of like 19.
Yeah, it's 1 week there's 15 people, and I think
15.
Another week there's 18.
But yeah, I think out of all those people, we only really disagreed on like 2 characters, and then
I won both times. I just want to point out, I did win.
You didn't. It's not a competition.
But I won.
I mean, well, no, but we just talked. You are the worst. We talked about it, and it's like.
And I won. Sorry, carry on.
Yes, you won.
Thank you. Okay,
and we talked about the pros and cons of putting the person in that position, and whether or not it was worth it. And then we came to an agreement, and it was fine.
Yeah, but my initial intuition is what won.
Is what drove it forward. Okay, well that's one way of looking at it. I think it's a very self-centered, individualistic way of looking at our directing team. But okay, sure. Okay.
Says the most self-centered man in the universe.
Well, I don't know what you mean.
Oh, God, we're the worst.
So yeah, and that was it. And then we sent out. Well, actually, it was our producer. We made a note
the next day. Sent out the cast list.
Yeah, finalised it all. Sent out the cast list, and people were happy. I think.
I think so. I think one of the main things as well was like so we didn't run callbacks.
Yeah, no.
I mean it's not a very big cast, and it just was kind of like where there was roles maybe where like say 3 or 4 people. So we had like. There's 2 weeks, and then we might have 3 or 4 people who could suit one character. So obviously 1 or 2 people just won't get that character, but it's kind of like I didn't feel the need to bring people back in. Yeah. And it's just kind of like sometimes I can see it being necessary, but most of the time from an audition, like if you've kind of remembered enough about them, and that sort of thing, you don't always need to do them. I feel like sometimes some people do callbacks just for the sake of doing callbacks, and like for me, I'd rather just get the cast list done also when you've just done the auditions, it's all fresh in your head.
Well, I think there's also the thing that's like, if let's say you're unsure about whether you want somebody as a certain character, coming and getting them to read a different set of lines to that character or something to see if they can kind of do what they did before.
Yeah, it can be helpful, good. But it's kind of like an individual thing. This is my third time, your second time directing, and we've never done callbacks.
I think as well, if we frame this, because this podcast is about taking show up to Fringe, because of the way that we're doing Fringe, where we have one cast for 1 week and then another cast for the second week. Another reason we didn't feel like we had to do callbacks was because we could swap and change characters anyway, so it wasn't too much of an issue. Yeah,
so Charlotte, she's playing Puss in Boots 1 week and Princess Fiona the other week, which is obviously like two quite different characters, but we felt suited her.
Yeah.
So it's quite fun as well, because I didn't really want people to be doing the same thing the whole time. And I think it'll make rehearsals really fun.
I think it'll make rehearsals fun as well. And it's like we get, as well as it being, we get to put some people in positions that we haven't seen them in before and we think they'd be good. Like one boy called Blythe, he's the fairy godmother for the second week, or is he for the first?
I don't know, one of the weeks.
He's for one of the weeks, and he's never done a role like that before, but we both think he's going to be really good doing that kind of thing.
His audition, like, he was proper Panto Dame, and just the voice he did and everything, it was really good. It was a really good audition. Because then the other week we're having Michael, and he does drag. I mean, he does sort of makeup and stuff. I don't know if he's done it. I don't think he's done a drag show.
I think he's planning to.
Yeah. And so he's done some drag stuff in real life, makeup, and it's very realistic. And he's like more of a sexy fairy godmother, and more like, is that a man or a woman?
Yeah.
I can't tell. So I think it'll be fun, because it's like we're gonna have. It also means for us when we're watching these shows, we're not going to just be watching the same thing. It's like it will change it up, and there'll be a different dynamic both weeks.
Not that the show of the cast is boring or anything. But
no, but like if you had to watch any show every day for 2 weeks, you'd get a bit sick of it.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think it creates a nice little dynamic. Yeah. And let's just reframe this in the context again of taking something up to Fringe. Just if you are looking to take a show up to Fringe and you are pushed for cast numbers or things like that, just have a look around when you are doing an audition and see the size of roles, whether or not you can have one person who you think would be good in two positions, perhaps playing those two different roles if they're two like small roles, because we've got that.
People, do we have anyone tripled up?
I don't know if we've got anybody tripled up.
We've definitely got people doubled up, because the right, so the amount of characters there are is what, 18?
Something
20?
like that. Yeah.
It's 18 to 20, but in one of the weeks we only have 15 cast members, so obviously there's a few people who have to double up, and usually that's fine. It's really easy to do a quick change depending on like the costumes. We're not going to have very complicated costumes because we don't have a huge budget, but it's also more fun when you're in a show, because if you're in a show and you only have like a small part with a few lines, it's less enjoyable if you just do those few lines, then you're not in anything else.
Yeah.
Whereas if you then get to change and you get to be someone else, it's like, just makes it a bit more fun. And I think that's something that's also quite important for like going to Fringe and stuff. It's going to be such a cool experience. I want the cast to actually enjoy themselves, and not feel bored at all, or like they're not doing a lot.
Well, I mean, we're the directors, they're not going to be bored. They're going to be loving it.
We are really fun.
But yeah, so just because, let's say you've got a show with 20 roles and you can't find 20 members, you can't find a cast of 20, doesn't mean your show's dead on the water. Have a look around, see if you can expand some of those the smaller parts and see if you can get one person playing 2 or 3 of those parts. It's not ideal. Well, I mean, it can be ideal. It just depends on what show you're doing, how big the parts are. So yeah, I think that's good. What, from doing the auditions, did you have any like highlights, any really funny bits? I know for me, if I heard, so for Panto, when you're doing an audition song, you can sing any song that you like. We don't ask you to do a certain one. I know that for callbacks they might ask you to do a specific song, but they didn't. We didn't ask for any for ours, and I think we had Happy Birthday or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star like 3 or 4 times.
But then we had Blythe who sang us a recipe for chili con carne,
which was just incredible.
It was like, I was shook, because it was when he said don't forget the spices, and I just looked at you and it was like, you would forget the spices.
I would forget the spices. I don't like spicy food, but I think
he just can't eat spicy food.
Anyway, that's not for the Panto.
That's a tale for another time. Was there any particular highlights? I don't know, I think some of the songs people did were quite funny. There was then people who did kind of like proper musical numbers.
Yeah.
So we had like a Book of Mormon song. Do we have any other musicals? Book of Mormon.
We had one from Heather's. We had Freeze Your Brain from Heather's, which I quite like.
Yeah,
it's one of my favourites.
That was good. I think everyone's songs were pretty fun.
It was all good. I think one of the hard things about being a director, and especially when you're casting people for certain roles.
It's so hard.
It's so hard because everybody's just so talented. But when I think that one of the hardest thing is, when you've got somebody who could be 5 different roles, and it is trying to like nail that down and just be like, oh, but this is where you'd be best, and that's tricky. It is tricky. But I think we've done quite well.
I am very happy with the cast, and I've had feedback from other people in Panto, and they all think the cast list looks sick. So it should be pretty good.
It'll be exciting. Yeah. I think we'll finish up soon, but recently in Bristol, Book of Mormon's come to town, and we've both been to see it. So we'll talk about that just before we kind of summarise and finish up, just like 5-10 more minutes. And so, yeah, when did you go see it? Monday? Yeah,
I think Monday. I don't know, time.
Had you listened to it before?
No, I'd heard I Believe, and I think that was it.
You'd heard, what, just I Believe?
Literally just that. I'd seen that in like it was not like the Oscars, but when they have award shows or like charity shows and they just have like random musicals just there.
Yeah.
I saw that and it was really good. I think it was like, well, it was just the Broadway cast, so the guy who...
Just the Broadway cast.
No, but I mean, I don't know who it was, but the guy who played Elder Price was very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this was my 3rd time seeing it, and I still love it as much as the first time I went to see it. A fanboy, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe. I do enjoy it. It was so good. Did you have a favourite part? What was...
I really like the opening number and like the final number.
Yeah.
Like when they redid it again, but with other characters.
Yeah.
Because I like a good long opening sequence. I enjoy that. And there was like a tap dance bit, which was really cool. So I like those 2 bits. Yeah, those 3 bits the most. It was all pretty good. I'm not sure. There were some of the characters who I wasn't like a huge fan of. I don't know.
Really?
It wasn't. Yeah, I didn't overly like the main guy that much.
Elder Cunningham or Elder Price?
The guy who played him I wasn't a huge fan of.
Okay.
I think because I'd seen this like clip from the Broadway one, I had extremely high expectations, and he was just quite nasally. Like, obviously it's kind of like part of the American accent, but it was just a bit much. And the lighting was, because I was in the cheapy seats, the lighting was like a bit harsh on the angles of his face.
Ooh, okay. Ooh,
it was overall good, but it's not something I go back and see in a hurry.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the most recent production. The first time I ever saw it in London.
You said was...
That was my favourite. I don't know.
I feel like if I'd seen that one, I would have been a bigger fan. I felt like this one was a bit weaker.
Yeah.
But like overall, it was still a funny show. I laughed a lot.
It has, I think, Spooky Mormon Hell Dream is one of my favourite.
Sorry, I forgot. Yes, that's amazing.
It's one of my favourite set pieces in any kind of piece of musical theatre. Just because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I liked how it made fun of musical tropes and things like that, because it properly did just take the mick.
Book of Mormon as a whole, that is.
Yeah, it was making fun of loads of like musical tropes, and I quite enjoyed the way it did that. And it had, I can't really remember, but it definitely had a lot of sort of pop culture references.
Well, they brought
and stuff like that.
Yeah, like one of the characters keeps getting the name of one of the tribeswomen wrong and ends up calling him Nigel Farage, which out of context doesn't sound funny, but at the time, it is quite funny.
Also, they wouldn't have done that if they were in America. It's
it would
the sort
have been
of thing
different.
The script can change.
It was good. I think, as well as what one is it? Turn It Off. It's my favourite song from that musical.
Cute. Yeah, that had the tap bit.
That's got the whole tap dancing number, and it's just excellent. And it's good. I think just as somebody like Amber and myself, or especially me,
right?
especially me, who doesn't have a big background in theatre spanning years. I suppose 2 years for me. 3 years at most, and you've kind of had it for, I don't know, 5 or 6.
It's not like I've seen every musical.
Well, no, not like that, but you've been involved in it more than I mean, and like dancing and stuff like that. But just going to see shows like Book of Mormon, and over Christmas I went to see Teenage Dick at the Donmar in London as well, and just seeing stuff like that, and then without any kind of actual training, just seeing how, like, what they do with the set and the way they move the actors around and all that kind of thing, and just seeing how you can bring it to something that you're putting on. Like, I know the Donmar's quite a small space, or it's very tall, but it's not like, I would say probably it's maybe a little bit smaller than the Winston, the stage, but it's what you can do in that space and what you can kind of do with the set is what I'm really excited to do for Shrek when we take that up to Fringe. But
we won't be able to do much.
No, I know we won't be able to do much, but it's giving
lower your expectations, my dude.
it's given me a bunch of ideas for scene transition stuff like that. But I think that's something we can talk about maybe in the next podcast when we talk about directing, because obviously this was focusing on auditioning. So yeah, cool. We'll touch on that more next.
Oh yeah, the only thing I was going to say about Book of Mormon as well, or like just shows in general, a lot of shows aren't too expensive to see. It sort of depends where you are, but like the tickets I got in Bristol Hippodrome were £13 each,
yeah.
So 1-3. And there's always a big perception that like theatre's super expensive and just it can be quite inaccessible, which is a shame. But like depending on where you, if you're in London, soz hun, like it's not really a lot you can do. But like there are plenty of smaller theatres where if you go for like upper circle seats, you can still see everything. And like I was told my seats have restricted vision, and there was maybe a 2-minute bit I couldn't see. Like I couldn't see someone opening a door in one scene, and that was it.
I know as well, 2 of our friends from Panto, they went to see Book of Mormon the other day, and they sometimes shows will do this thing beforehand where if it's half hour before the show's meant to start,
you can get a £5 ticket.
Yeah, they'll do like £5 or £15 tickets for the show and just lottery off those kind of tickets to the people waiting outside. And so for like £15 they ended up getting like front row seats, which would normally cost upwards of like 80, something like that. So definitely worth looking into. I reckon.
Oh, and the other thing that was really cool, I have a friend who works in lighting in shows, so I like seeing how they do the lighting, and it's like, oh, that's the sort of thing Lily would do. But also they had a tap sequence, and I think they weren't doing the tap. I reckon they had sort of... So one thing I've done in a show before is they had a sort of curtained off bit on backstage, and we had to sing harmonies into this mic, because for one of the songs it had backing singing, but they couldn't have us on stage. So I think they must have had 1 or 2 people sort of on tap floor doing the tap and having it recorded, and they obviously can't see the stage, they can just hear the music, and they have to tap at the same time as the people on stage are, which was pretty cool. So I just thought that was cool, and it's kind of fun trying to work out how they do different transitions and like how this person got over there really quickly and stuff like that, because it's always when you're in the audience you don't realise the actual stage space on these stages is usually huge, and like the backstage bit can be massive. Like at home backstage there's so much room, and there'll be like a quick change area, and there's people with like costumes, or like there'll be people who've had to like dump some of their stuff right on the side of the stage so they can get changed again, and it's not something the audience like really sees at all. Like as soon as you get off stage it's like you're out of character and you're trying to like sort yourself out. And it's just so fun, because I cried in one show because we were doing the dress run, and I had to get out of like a 1920s like Charleston dress into like a full suit with like a tie and a hat, and then get to the other side of the stage and then walk up some stairs before some dialogue happened, and it just wasn't possible. Like I couldn't do it, so I literally like ran to the side, and it was too late. I now could not get onto the stage for this bit, so this boy sort of remembered my lines and managed to like just sort of like go with it, and I was just so gutted. It was horrible. So it was basically just meant I had to leave the opening number a bit earlier and not run back on. It was just like throwing off my stuff in the quick change area and like pulling on this suit I'd got from a charity shop for like 12 quid.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it was Bugsy Malone. A lot of fun. All
that kind of stuff we will touch more on in the directing one, and we can talk about all of the backstage kind of stuff that
Backstage banter
that we've helped to organise. Good, we'll make that one the next one then. Before we finish up though, just because anybody listening to this who has done an audition and wondering how they've done and is stressing about that a bit, have you got any audition horror stories that you've like experienced? You've just thought, oh my god, I'm going to bury my head in the sand and never read a script ever again.
I don't know. Have you?
Well, I think the first one I did for Panto, which we talked about last time, where I was doing the song and got stuck on the high note, and I was absolutely mortified. I was just embarrassed because it
was fine. I think I feel like I remember more. Yeah, like I remember running the auditions more than doing them.
Really? Yeah. Do you just kind of blank it out? You like you do it and then they go on.
I do it and then it's like I don't want to remember whatever just happened there. I'm trying to think because I don't even know what songs I've sang before.
Really?
Like,
oh, it's all just gone from your head.
I mean, my memory's awful. It's really bad. So, je ne sais pas. But like a lot of the time, it's like you'll feel it's gone bad. But like, I've done a bunch of auditions and like, I don't remember any of them being awful.
Yeah.
Like even like you messing up the song, it was like that's obviously not how you sing, or it's like it was just something like it just happened, and it's not like I remember it and laugh about it, although because it's you, I'm more tempted. But it's like honestly, it won't have gone that bad. And like, you know, the fact you're doing auditions and stuff, it's like good to just give that stuff a go, even if it's your first one.
I think so.
It's always gonna be nervous, but it's like, even if it does go badly, like, it's not gonna go that badly.
I think as well, it's always important to remember, especially for callbacks, if you have the extracts beforehand, almost always you'll practice it at home and it'll be pretty good, and then you'll do it on the audition and it just won't be as good.
Yeah, that happened with. Jesus Christ. Because that's like the most fresh one in my head.
A horror story then?
Well, it's not a horror story. I just felt it didn't go very well. And I walked out and was immediately like, well, that was awful.
Well, I remember that happening. It is very much like this, like we it never goes as well as when you practice it, and that's fine.
Well, they also, like, the panel will know if someone's nervous and stuff like that. And, like, a lot of the time they already know what they're looking for, and they tend to have a preference in callbacks, I feel.
You reckon?
Yeah, I reckon so. I reckon they normally have a preference, but it's sort of double checking. Yeah. So with Snow White, we didn't run specific callbacks, but we did get the girl who was going to play Snow White to send us a clip of her singing one of the songs she'd have to do, because I don't want to run full on callbacks, but I just wanted to double check she actually could do that number. I think it's Honey Honey by ABBA.
Which is fine, because that's something we talked about earlier.
It was just sort of like just double checking that we were definitely happy.
Cool. So. Alright, so to summarise then, when going to an audition as an actor, stay calm.
Yeah. If they send you the extract beforehand, just practice it with people. Yeah,
and you know, just don't stress if it doesn't go as well as you've practiced it. It never does.
And there'll always be more auditions as well.
There always will be more auditions, and most importantly, have fun with it, because they're not, unless you're playing a miserable part.
Yeah, and then don't have fun.
You're not going to want to have an absolutely miserable person on the cast. As somebody who, as a director or somebody who's doing casting for a show, just, you know, note down what important characteristics the characters have in the show.
I mean, especially if you're doing a big show. Like, our Snow White cast was, 40 people? You don't want to leave it to the last minute to cast.
We had a very big sheet with lots of names and lots of scribbles. You want to,
like, make sure your descriptions are good and have an idea of what they look like, sound like, just so that you're not at the end like, ah!
Yeah. So make a note of what the characters are like when people come in, either, you know, at the time or afterwards. Well, at the time, make a note of what the people auditioning are like, and then either at the same time, see what character that's applicable to, or afterwards, if you want to do that, you know, same means to an end. And yes, I think also just be nice and polite to people when they come in, because obviously it's going to be stressful for them.
Don't be an ass.
Especially if you're a student doing a fringe show, something like that, I think everybody's there for a bit of fun. You know, fringe is a fun experience. And so, yeah, just try and enjoy it, and try and let your future cast enjoy it as well. All right, do you have anything? You love the sound of your own voice. Do you have anything to add? Go on. Is that it?
No.
Wonderful. In that case, thank you very much for listening. If anybody has any questions, leave them in the comments, and
we might answer them.
My press officer will get back to you.
I probably will not.
But yeah.
Yeah, if you are listening, I hope you enjoyed. If you exist, you probably are not listening.
Oh, so cynical. See you in the next one, imaginary people.